5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask about the date that Lois Lerner's hard drive failed, because you gave us more specificity here today, and I appreciate that. What day did her hard drive fail?
We believe it failed on June 11th, which is a Saturday, between 5 and 7 p.m.
So this hard drive failed conveniently. Do you know where it was when it failed?
We believe, based on log activity, that the laptop was in her office at the time that the hard drive failed.
So on a Saturday, it was just sitting there, and it just sort of failed on its own on a Saturday, on June 11th. Can you tell if there was any computer activity at the time that it failed from log activity?
There was. We were unable to determine if a program was in place that would remove another program from the computer. It was a silent deployment, if you will. That deployment was scheduled to occur between two dates, but we weren't able to definitively say there was any computer activity on that computer on June 11, 2013, or 2011 when it was destroyed.
So here's what I find interesting. On June 3rd, the chairman of Ways and Means sent a letter to Doug Shulman, who was a commissioner of the IRS at the time. You're familiar with that letter?
I'm not.
June 3rd, just briefly says, as chairman of Committee on Ways and Means, and this was sent by Mr. Camp, the chairman at the time, he was concerned that the IRS appears to have selectively targeted certain taxpayers who engaged in political speech. Not only does this threaten political speech, it casts doubt on the IRS credibility. He sent that on June 3rd, which is, I looked it up on a calendar, a Friday. So it's likely they didn't receive it at the IRS until Monday, which would have been June, what'd that make it, 6th? So here we have June 6th. They probably received this letter, and her hard drive magically fails on its own in her office on a Saturday, 5 days later. Now, before we thought there was a 10-day difference, but now we realize there's a 5-day difference. This is just an amazing coincidence to me. I think it's more than a coincidence. I want to put up on the screen a directive that was sent out by the Chief Technology Officer of the IRS, if we could get that on the screen. And this is the directive that went out to managers, is that correct? Telling them not to erase the data?
Correct.
This directive went out on May 22nd, 2013. When were the tapes erased at the IRS?
On or about March 4th, 2014.
So about 8 months later. And is this, if we look at the highlighted part on here, it says, do not destroy, wipe, reuse any of the existing backup tapes for email or archiving or other information from IRS personal computers. Did that go to managers that were at the facility where the tapes were erased?
It did, and there was a lot of discussion that we captured in our investigation by capturing the manager's emails over what Milholland meant by this directive. So there was some back and forth.
So what did they say they thought it meant when you talked to them?
They believed that it pertained to hard drives and personal computers. They over-interpreted the directive, which was basically preserve all electronic media.
So they thought it just applied to hard drives and personal computers, and that's what they told you, but doesn't it clearly say, do not destroy, wipe, reuse any of the existing backup tapes?
It does.
So if they didn't do this willingly or knowingly or purposefully, this is basically incompetence, isn't it?
One could come to that conclusion. Yes, sir.
Either that or they can't read?
One could come to that conclusion. Like I said, you'll see in our report of investigation, we captured a lot of the email traffic back and forth between employees as they were discussing the impact that this has on their operations out there and destroying things.
Do these people still work for the IRS?
Yes.
Why is that? If they're this incompetent?
The Internal Revenue Service is going to get a copy of our report of investigation when we're through, and I imagine that they will look at it and they will take appropriate action.
I thank you, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the